What's up, YouTube? So before we get started with this video, on First Take, they're going to talk about how Duke and Syracuse played each other last night, and one of the Syracuse players intentionally tripped Zion Williamson. So they're going to talk about that. Let's see what they have to say.
I walk into a convenience store, and I shoplift the convenience store, and I walk out, and the monitor doesn't see me, the clerk at the front desk doesn't see me. Does that mean I didn't steal from the convenience store if I didn't get caught? No, I still did steal from the convenience store. Like, we watched it. It didn't get caught up into commotion of being next to another player. Like, when you want to trip somebody, from guys who hoop and play this game, you put your foot out and you try to trip somebody. You curl your toe and you try to trip somebody. Now, if your momentum is taking you one way and you collide, that's a completely other different conversation. But just because people tell me it didn't happen doesn't mean it didn't happen. I watched it with my own eyes last night. I watched the tape over and over and over. Once again, not crazy egregious, but let's act like it didn't just happen. It happened.
I think it was egregious. And the problem I have with it, look, these are still kids we're talking about. I know, like, you hear 18-year-olds. I'm a grown man.
Max.
Nah, Max, there's no way. 18, 19-year-olds in college, you definitely know what's wrong from right. And trying to intentionally trip and hurt somebody, that's just wrong. And, I mean, you learned that in elementary school, trying to trip people. So there's no excuse for this guy being 18, 19 years old and tripping somebody. You don't get away with the age excuse. Let's keep going.
Max,
Yeah.
we have a lot of 18-year-old, 19-year-olds in the NBA as well. And I understand.
Yeah.
I talk about college basketball for a living. People
Sure.
always saying all their kids. Well, we talk about kids differently when they're pros too.
That is true. That is true, but he's not yet a pro. So I do have mixed feelings about the kind of amount of negative attention that can come on a teenager who makes a mistake.
Max, a mistake is a wrong turn. What he did was intentional. He stuck his foot out there so he can hurt a player that he knows is coming off an injury, so he can hurt him further and do better in the game. Because Zion was probably beating them all up. So let's keep going.
I think it's a teaching moment for that kid and for others who are watching. And, like, I'm not trying to hear I didn't mean to do it, because that is pretty clearly not true. I mean, he stuck his foot out for no reason. You said curled his toe and everything. Like, you see when a guy is trying to trip someone. This is the only thing I want to know from Frank Howard. Is this because the ACC tournament means that much to you, and you're just always thinking of little ways to help your team, and that's their best player, so you would see a chance to take them out in some way? Did you think, was it on your mind, this dude is coming back off a knee injury? Or did you just forget that in the moment, in the heat of the competition? That I could buy. I could buy a kid saying, yeah, like I little trick of the trade, I really wasn't thinking this guy's coming off a knee injury. Even though that's hard to imagine, at least the honesty of admitting that he tripped him would lend it some credibility. But that...
It was probably a combination of everything. He knew he was already coming off an injury. He knew that's their best player. He wanted to hurt him and get him out, period. It's a combination of everything. Everybody knows what goes on in sports. Let's keep going.
That's why it was so egregious to me. That's why he should have been ejected. This is a kid who is so famously, in Zion Williamson, a young man who's coming off a famous injury to his knee. And in his first game back, you trip him down the court. Guys, if you want to hack someone going to the rim, even if it's a dangerous maneuver, he's up in the air, at least there's a rationale, like, I'm making him pay a price from coming to the rack, right? This is not that. This is just like, this dude is coming off an injury. Let me see if I can take their best player out. That's messed up. And the lesson that needs to be learned, and the message Boeheim needs to send, is we don't do that. That's not, like, I know you, even if it's coming from a level of competition and not just pure envy or jealousy, we don't behave that way. Like, it's really...
All right, Max, that's definitely, the coach needs to nip that in the bud, because that's something that should be untolerated. To intentionally hurt somebody like that, and possibly ruin their career or just hurt them altogether, coaches got to take care of that, because not only does that show what that kid's about, but it shows what the coaching staff, what they're about. Like, what are you guys teaching these kids? Are you teaching them to intentionally hurt people? The coach needs to set the tone and show that is unacceptable. That is unacceptable for somebody to try and hurt somebody else like that and ruin their career just for a win. That's unacceptable. Let's keep going.
Actually an important moment, and I think it was egregious.
Well,
I don't think it was that egregious, but I definitely think he did it on purpose. And I don't think he should have been ejected for it. The problem that I have with more than anybody is Jim Boeheim, and allow me to explain. First of all, I had to watch it a couple of times. I was damn near half asleep last night when I saw it. I woke up this morning halfway asleep, waking up, saw it, and then I watched it again this morning with Greeny. The curling of the toe that you alluded to, Jay Williams, was the kicker for me. His toes going up, it's like, really? He damn sure did try to trip him. No question about it. No way around it. But I'll tell you why he was doing it, because Zion was busting their butt. That's why. And so you...
Exactly, Stephen A. They were all getting beat up by Zion down there. And I tell you what, if I was Zion's teammate and I saw them trying to trip him and intentionally hurt him, it would have been on right there on the court. Right there, we would have been brawling. Because I tell you what, if you take one of mine, I'll take 3 of yours. And I'll say it again. If you take one of mine, I'll take 3 of yours. Let's keep going.
Sitting there thinking, by any means, we need to stop this dude. I don't think that he was thinking about the knee injury in that particular moment. I don't think it was something along those lines. I think they were getting their butts kicked, and his mentality was, well, you know what? I don't mind tripping him or whatever. It was a
slow him down some kind of way.
Slow him down some type of way, all right? I'm not saying you don't condone it. Obviously, you got to call him on the carpet for it. But you can't have a respected coach, as highly as respected as Jim Boeheim, coming on national television after the game and looking into the cameras and looking at the media, y'all just making this up. This is utterly ridiculous. And coming to his defense to that degree, even though it's your player, you don't talk about the sport. This is one of the iconic figures in all of basketball, which is Jim Boeheim. Now, the kid, again, he should not have done what he's done. I'm not absolving him from it. Those kind of things happen when you play on the court. Unfortunately, but it does happen. And it's not necessarily tripping. Sometimes you give a cat an elbow. Yeah. You do a lot of different things to a guy to hurt him.
That's why I want to know about Jay.
You cannot have Boeheim defending it like that.
That's why I want to know about, was it on your mind about the knee? Because, right, if it's the equivalent of giving someone an elbow or something, that's one thing. But if the kid would have come out and said at least, I wasn't even thinking about the knee injury, I'm just trying to do what I can do, I can buy that.
But Max, but perception is reality, right? And look, from a guy who's played in a ton of games his entire life, I've been, guys have tapped me in places they should never tap with a closed fist, hitting in that area. Guys throw an elbow, you get random bowed in the face. You try to meet somebody at the rim. Look, Shaq's put me on my tail multiple times. You don't see dudes trip each other like that, though. That's not what we...
Exactly. That's just completely utter dirty play. That's the cheapest way to win. To intentionally hurt their best player, that is the cheapest way to win. If you're going to cheat and stealing plays or something along those lines, but to go out there and intentionally hurt somebody like that and ruin their career just to win a game, if that's the case, I wouldn't want to win. I wouldn't want to win. You don't cheat like that. You don't intentionally hurt somebody like that. Now, football is a different story because you're allowed to get violent and aggressive. So there's a different set of rules. But in basketball, you can't intentionally trip somebody like that. Let's keep going.
In the game, not at all. And we will be having a completely different conversation if Zion had fallen down and hit his head on the floor.
No, I'll say this.
Conversation would have been if he had fallen down.
Let me tell you the biggest argument against Frank Howard. We were all over Grayson Allen. I mean, everybody. They were all over this kid. And listen. And when you saw Grayson Allen on the bench at that particular time, literally there was discussions on national television as to whether or not he needed help, if he needed therapy or whatever, because you saw how emotional he was, banging his hand on the chair. We were all over him. So in that regard, I would say to Frank Howard, no, you don't get a pass for that, because we certainly didn't give it to Grayson Allen.
You know what else I don't like about what Boeheim did, guys? What does that trip really mean? What does it signify? That this kid is willing to go a little extra to win, right? He's willing to go to a place maybe you shouldn't go. And when Boeheim uses an attack against the media, that as though it's being manufactured, he's also going to a place you shouldn't go in order.
Exactly, Max. So a coach should always support his players. Always support your players. But when your players are wrong, you got to call it. You got to call it, admit to it, and address it. But you cannot defend your player if he does something dirty like that, because that's just a bad reflection for everybody up and down the ladder, from your player to you to your coaching staff. You gotta nip that in the butt and you gotta call it. If your player did something wrong, own up to it and move on. But you can't play into that. So let's keep going.
To defend the kid.
After acknowledging he saw the tape. After acknowledging he saw the tape.
Right. And my point about Boeheim is, that